Good afternoon, everybody. This is Fego Franklin III with New Stitch Media. Today, I am joined by Timothy Brown, who is the producer of at ESPN. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm good, man. No complaints. How are you?
I can't complain myself, man. Just blessed. It's a nice sunny day out in Virginia.
All
So
right.
before we get it, but before we get into your journey, can you give my viewers some words of encouragement for today?
I'll just say, I know it sounds cliche, but just keep striving, keep on keeping on. That's definitely been the case in 2020, man. We only got like a couple days left in this year. Just stay strong. Basically, is what I can say.
Hey, man, thank you for those encouraging words. So let's just jump into 2020. How has 2020 been for you, and how had you adjusted to the pandemic?
2020 has been well. My birthday is January 2nd, so
Mm-hmm.
2020 is like obviously got out to a great start. And then around the middle of the month, I think it all started with like Kobe passing, and that was, a sad day at work, being that I
Mm-hmm.
work at the end or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It just went down. It was just so surreal. And then we started hearing, these rumors of like some kind of pandemic overseas, and it was like, oh, I mean, it's one of those things. Like, oh, you hear the news, and it's like, all right, that won't, probably like mistakenly saying, that won't affect us or whatever. But then
Mm-hmm.
come March, and and around March 13th or 14th, they started canceling tournaments, conference
Mm-hmm.
tournaments. They're like, well, here we go. Is
Mm-hmm.
it bad? And then every day, just stuff kept added. And the NBA game, I think it was the Kings, Nuggets, one
Mm-hmm.
of those games, Pelicans. They canceled that. It was like, oh, here we go. And then that put us in a holding pattern for a while. And I remember I stayed home. I worked from home for about like 6 or 7 months without even knowing, what the next step is. And then I finally was able to get back into the building, and it's been, I won't say no, it's still not normal, but a little more normal now.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows when January rolls around? Who knows what that's going to be like? So,
So, what
but it's been
advice?
weird. It's been weird.
All right. What advice can you give people that are actually in the media field right now that is panicking, getting laid off? What advice can you give those individuals right now?
I would say don't take it personal. Don't think it's you. Everybody. I've been through five layoffs at ESPN. I've been at ESPN for 20 years, and there's been like five big layoffs since I've been here. And I always say, like, people say, it's not a reflection on you. That's what I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Just that's the business. Kind of like if you're in pro sports, and you get cut from a team, it's not always personal. It's business, and you just move on. Just make sure that you network and that have a lot of people on your side that will vouch for you and be able to, like, not say anything bad, about you, or um, just make sure your name is good in the industry. Well, you can always like jump to the next opportunity and not like be in a holding pattern for a couple months, end up like questioning yourself, and like your confidence will be low. So I would just say, don't take it personal. Know your worth, and know that you're valuable to any company that you may go to.
So, you work with ESPN for 20 years. What
Hmm.
does a normal day look like for you?
Uh, well, surprisingly, it's gotten a lot easier as the years have gone on for me.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started, it was kind of like, I was a production assistant. 22 years old, fresh out of college. I started there 2 months after I graduated, and just like you just like try. It's such a big place, and like it expanded like by a couple, like 10 or 11 buildings since I've been there. But when I first got there, I was just like, oh man, this ESPN, I'm finally here. This has been a dream for a while. You kind of fall into that pattern of, wanting to do a lot of stuff at one time, and kind of like feeling end over your head. You got to take a step back and, calm down. But I would say, like, when I first started, my day would consist of coming in, going to like a sports center show meeting or whatever show I was assigned to that day, um, and see what game I had. We usually have like a baseball game, either one or two baseball games, and my job was to um, write down every play of the game, log every play, and when the game ended, just go over with my highlight supervisor, go over our plan, maybe like 4 or 5 plays, depending on how much time the producer of Sports Center or Baseball Tonight or whatever show you edited the highlights for would give you. Um, and a lot of production assistants do that for a couple of months before they're able to move on to a specialty show. for example, a show like NFL Primetime or NFL Live. My first show was actually like a NASCAR show, a half-hour NASCAR show. That was the first show I was able to be a part of, and then I eventually went on to NFL Primetime, NFL Live. I worked on pretty much every show in the building at least 4 or 5 times. So that's how my day used to. And then I rose through the ranks and eventually got to produce some of those shows.
So, what advice can you give people about learning different things within the industry?
Well, I would say and it's funny. I mentioned that a NASCAR show is the first show I worked on. I didn't know it. I'm from the South, I'm from Louisiana, but Louisiana is not a NASCAR state, and not a lot of Black people grew up around fans of NASCAR or embrace like they are now actually. So I would say just be receptive to and open to learning maybe a sport you would know a lot about. Take a couple days or a week to go over rules and watch as many different sports as you can. And that holds true for NASCAR, golf, soccer, whatever just outside of the major 3 sports. Major 4 sports, fine. Hockey is not as popular as it's other, but I was able to learn a lot about those other sports, and I embraced it, and it helped me tremendously to know and there's people that teach you, but nobody's gonna hold your hand if you don't know certain rules and stuff. So I would say just take it upon yourself to learn those differences. If obviously if you work for a sports network and news, not maybe not as much, but me sports network, it was a requirement for me to. And then when I interviewed, I actually was asked about I was throwing a couple of curveballs and asked about sports I didn't know about. But luckily, I read up on a lot of stuff, and I was like, "Oh, cool! I read that," and so I was able to pass that portion of it. But
So, what is your favorite memory with being at ESPN?
I would say going to my first Super Bowl.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a production assistant on NFL Live for a couple of years, and the first Super Bowl I went to was Super Bowl 40 in Detroit. Still a Seahawks Super Bowl. Now, obviously, Detroit in February, but awesome time working with the athletes, being able to field producers, to meet different athletes, interviewing them, and hanging out with Michael Irvin. Probably not doing as much as he did, but bring us right. The guys like Tringo and all these other guys that familiar with seeing on TV, taking us out, and just like the camaraderie that we built, and just like the bond. Trey would get us into all these parties, and we were like 25, 26 years old. So oh man, the more those events you go to, you're like, okay, it's work. But just that first time going to a major sporting event, you're like, wow, man, this is actually happening. I can't believe, I do this for a living and get paid to do this. So that's probably about my fondest memory. And, over the years, I met a lot of, different athletes, either come through a building or, we went out on location to different college campuses or wherever to see. But that's my lasting memory, the first Super Bowl I've been to.
So me and you both have something in common. With me, I covered Super Bowl. My first Super Bowl was Super Bowl 52 with my Eagles winning the Super Bowl.
Gotcha.
In Minnesota. So tell me, was you nervous, just covering or just being at that Super Bowl event? Because I know I was super nervous.
Yeah. I would say, what's funny is because I did a lot of the things I did in the building at ESPN, logging sound and editing sound and stuff. I was just doing it on the road and having to be a little faster to get things turned around. So I wasn't. I was nervous about because a lot of those remotes. I don't know if this is true for you, but a lot of those remotes, you want to look busy a lot of times, even though you may not be busy.
Yep.
You want to hang around a truck and just chill. You want to kind of walk off and give the illusion that you are busy, even though you might not be. But that was my biggest worry. Is just making an impression, that I'm impressing them, saying I'm a good worker or whatever. That's my only. Everything else was just everything I did at ESPN in the building was what I did on the road. It was just on location and maybe a little bit faster pace. So, and I was at ease after the first show that we did. So, anything else was second nature. So it ended up working pretty well. So,
what advice would you share with anybody that is trying to produce at a big time network?
I would say just start when you're in college. By freshman or sophomore year. I started like my sophomore year writing for the school newspaper, being a sports writer and a sports columnist. Even though I was a broadcast major,
Mm,
just I would say get on the staff of your school newspaper. That's like critical. Brush up on your writing because that helps tremendously in TV. Even though writing articles is probably not, you probably don't do it. It's probably not as it's probably not the same as writing for TV because TV
mm,
shorter sentences and quicker as opposed to like these long articles. But
mm.
like writing long articles and writing not only sports but writing like like about things going on in the city or politics will help you tremendously with like because you can translate that pretty well into sports. So I was just like brushing up on your writing skills is number one. Network. I know these days, people don't want to intern for free. I had a couple, unpaid internships back then. That's probably changing now. You want to get paid now, obviously. But I
Mm.
like volunteer a lot of places, like local TV stations or newspapers, things like that. That's what impressed ESPN on my resume. I did a lot of like small newspaper type stuff and like a lot of things around the campus and stuff like that.
What
Like,
advice what advice would you give people of color that is actually covering an uncomfortable topic? What advice would you give them about covering it and not letting their feelings get involved?
and that's admittedly pretty tough to not let your personal feelings get in that. But I would say just just think about um just concentrate on doing your job and like putting out bringing across like presenting it as best as possible. Just thinking about like you have a job to do first of all. That's kind of like I talked to a lot of like on air people and they were like, because a lot of guys naturally you're fans of different teams.
Mm,
So like I'm a Saints fan. And you say you're an Eagles fan. A lot of
mm,
times, the human nature is to be biased when you're covering a topic that your favorite team. Just put
mm,
your biases. I would say put your biases aside and just concentrate on what you need to do. And that would impress. It would actually impress your bosses more if you just like concentrate on your job and like put your personal feelings aside and just
mm,
think, you know, um, just think about doing, just doing a great job. As generic as that sounds.
mm. So you say you're a Saints fan. Do
Mm-hmm.
you honestly think that after this year that Drew Brees is going to retire?
Yeah, I think he will. He has another year left after this year on his contract, but I think he wanted to retire this year.
Mm,
But the thing, well, it's I don't know if it's out there like it is, but the rumor was, which is actually true, that Tom Brady was going to stop the Saints.
mm,
But Drew Brees caught winning that. He was like, "Oh no, no way! There's no way Tom Brady's gonna come take over. A franchise I helped build." So he ended up playing this year, even though he was going to retire, but he decided to come back this year. But I think this is his last year. And if they don't win a Super Bowl, that's gonna be pretty. It's gonna be a pretty bad look on him.
yes.
Because
So,
he's physically he's pretty done. But
mm.
you know,
So who like what teams are you intrigued with watching going into the postseason play?
I'm gonna trade with the Bills.
Mm,
I'm talking enough about the Bills, how well they match up with Kansas City and Josh Allen. I mean, Aaron Rodgers might win the MVP. He's a favorite, and people say Mahomes is second. I think Josh Allen is second. He's
mm,
and their run defense might be a little spotty in Buffalo, but their pass defense is pretty decent with Trey White back there, and they're a complete team. I think they can give Kansas City a run for their money. I think Kansas City has to watch out for them in the AFC.
mm,
NFC, you got the Packers, but they're a lot like the Saints. They get to the divisional round or the conference championship a lot of times and just can't advance, whether it be like surrendering big leads or some fluky will happen. So I'm not quite as sold on the Packers as I am on the Bills, but I think the NFC is way more wide open than the AFC. Obviously, yeah, Kansas City, but the Bills are that's the team you have to really look out for.
So what teams impressed you this year? Like with me, it was Baker Mayfield and the Browns. What they've been able to do has been a phenomenal season, and they're on the verge of not even making the
Yeah,
playoffs. That is crazy.
that is crazy.
So what teams, in your perspective, surprised you this season?
I think actually I think the Saints surprised me a little bit because like Drew Brees got hurt last year, and
Mm,
Bridgewater filled in. They went 5-0. Then when Breeze went down again, I'm like, oh man. And then I thought it was gonna be Jameis Winston, but it ended up being Taysom Hill. And like a lot of Saints was like Taysom Hill, here we go. He's
Mm-hmm.
not a great passer. He's more of a gimmicky type guy.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what happens. Sean Payne's a pretty good coach, so he should be able to get something out of him. It was like, okay, Drew Brees will probably be out 5 or 6 weeks, 5, 6, 7 weeks. So we'll see if we can win, 3 or 4 of those games. And we end up winning we went 3-1 or whatever. But other than them, I was like the Colts, who are also on the verge of not making. They are also. The AFC is pretty tough. Like, what is it? This number 6 or 7 team has like 10 wins, or number 8 has 10 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Close to the NFC was like one of the division winners probably have only 6 wins, and the Rams are on the verge of not making the playoffs. But I would say, between the Colts and the Saints, those 2 teams impress me the most.
Mm. And my last question to you is, what advice can you give people about sticking to their course and overachieving obstacles that come in their life?
Just stay in the course. There's a lot of, and I'll be pretty open with this. Like when you first hit me out, coming on the show, and I told you like I'm moving on to other opportunities. Actually, my last day at ESPN is January 8th, and I'll be moving on to a whole nother network, which I won't say now until I'll announce it on January 8th. But it's not sports. It's new. It's more of a news culture type vertical that I'll be on. But I would just say just the confidence and being able to know your worth, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't do this, or you're sports. There's no way you know about politics or whatever, because there's a lot of people at ESPN who don't have sports backgrounds, who didn't even major in broadcast journalism. There's a lot of math majors there, and there's a couple chemistry majors and some history majors that decides what, I don't want to be in a lab all day. I rather I want to do something fun and go into sports. So I was like, just do with your heart. Don't think that you can't get on the broadcast if you don't have this background, because you absolutely can. They're more impressed with what and the skills you can bring to the company, especially the company at ESPN. I would say 15 to 20% of people there did not major in broadcast or communications at all. So I was I call ESPN a great equalizer. It's just no matter what school you went to, what you majored in, what your grades were, even though you don't want to flunk out, but none of that stuff matters at a place like ESPN or any of these other big networks. They just want to know what you can do for me, and the first impressions, and how you treat others and your teamwork, and just going the extra mile. That's all they care about. So I would just say keep being yourself, keep trying to impress who you can, network, and the rest would just fall into place.
And my bonus question for you is, how has ESPN molded you into the man that you are, being that you've been with them for 20 plus years?
I would say it's definitely a character builder, that's for sure. Because when I first started ESPN, I was on this. Everybody who comes in is on this 6-month, probation period, and if after that period, after 6 months, you're hired on full time. But when I didn't get vacation during that time, benefits, I was making $10 an hour. It was, being I'm from Louisiana, and being in a place like Connecticut, when I didn't know anyone, it's freezing. even though it's an hour and a half, 2 hours from New York, you're not going to go to New York every time you're off. So you're a young black man in Central Connecticut. That's another challenge. So I would say over the years, I'm one of those people. People tell me, why'd you stay at ESPN 20 years? And my thing was well, I hate moving. So that's the biggest. But I ended up taking a liking to a lot of people I work with, a lot of my coworkers. The people will make ESPN. It's a great job. It's a great place to work because you get network and meet a lot of big people in the industry, and meet a lot of famous people. But it helped me build character. And once I put out that I'm leaving ESPN on my I put it on my Facebook, I was overwhelmed by the number of people that I didn't realize that I was a mentor, or I made so many people over the years. People was oh man, you're one of the legends at ESPN. This you helped me a lot, even though you didn't realize it, and I didn't. So I would say I thought I was just being myself, naturally, a leader, and just people taking gravitating towards me. So it helped me tremendously with being like a better person and, character building and, embracing, pressure situations and just going the extra mile. I became a well-rounded person, and people put that in my evaluation, noticing the change. Like, not as confident when I first started to like, oh, I can do anything. Oh, big, get this done in 15, 20 minutes. So it helped boost my confidence. And I just became a completely better, and now I'm like confident to, go at this other place I'm going to, and just like I can be a leader and like advance pretty quickly.
Amen to that. Before we let you go, Kimothy, where can my viewers find your journey with your social handles?
So my Twitter is KB Knows, KNOWS best. That's my Twitter. You can find me on Facebook at Kimothy Santiago Brown. That's my phone, on my phone name. But people call me KB. That's what I go by. But Facebook that way, and on Instagram, Count on KB altogether. So.
All right, man. Thank you for joining me, KB. Everybody, this is Fego Franklin III. You can follow me on my Instagram, which is SuperJournalist87. You can follow me on my Facebook, which is Fego Franklin III. You can follow me on my LinkedIn, which is Fego Franklin III. Or, well, you can just Google me for more exclusive updates on your favorite celebrities, athletes, and different individuals that are doing positive things within the community. Again, this is Fego Franklin III with New Stitch Media. Thank you again for Kimothy for joining me, and we'll talk soon, buddy.
All right, thank you. Talk to you later, man.
Yes, sir. All right, now have a blessed one.
You too, man. Thank you.
Uh-huh.